Hello, Weekend Crafter! Welcome back to the Craft Time Studio. I'm Ange, and for this weekend, I wanted to share with you how I make my floral polymer clay bead drops. This is probably going to be my last video for the year, so I hope that you enjoy what I'll be sharing for today. If you haven't yet, it would mean so much to me if you could give this video a like or if you subscribe to the channel. As always, before we begin, let's clean our work area first with a few spritzes of alcohol. These are the colors that I'm using for today's project. I will also use the craft poking tool or a skewer, a detail needle, a short tissue blade, a flower silicone mold, and a clay extruder. I also made use of a cutting mat only because I need to follow the grid for measurements. Because this is a pretty beat up mat, I covered the top with some plastic to make sure that the clay doesn't stick to the mat. Next, I loaded the clay into the extruder. I'm using the base circle plate that I have. Once the clay passes through the extruder, I line it up against the mat to make even cuts on my coil. This is what also helps to make sure that I have equal amounts of clay to make even beads. Of course, you can also measure the weight of each part in case you want it to be really exact. But because I don't have a weighing scale, this is the strategy that I find useful. Now it's time to roll out the beads. I'm doing this manually, and I roll the coil in between my two palms until I form a spear shape. As you might have seen, I didn't condition my clay too much. The reason is that it's harder to make beads out of clay that is too soft. I needed it to be a bit firm. If your clay becomes too soft, I suggest putting it in the fridge for a bit of time. As I roll these beads out, I want to take this time to give my thanks to all of you for supporting my channel. 2021 was a productive year for me in terms of my clay crafting. This year, I officially joined Creative Fabrica as a teacher to share my detailed tutorials on how to make a floral polymer clay slab, which, if you've been watching me for a bit now, is one of my favorite things to do. I will share a link down in the description in case you want to check that tutorial out. I was also picked by the Create Along team to join their 2022 design team. For someone like me who works full-time and just crafts on the weekend, these are wonderful experiences that are giving me so much joy and fulfillment. So again, a big thank you, guys, for being there through this journey. Now let's go back to our spheres. I did a couple just so that you could see that they are all about the same size. The next thing to do is to poke a hole through the bead. Get a poking tool or a skewer. Then, very slowly turn the poking tool through the center of the bead until you see the sharp end poking at the other side. If you are just making a regular bead, then you are basically done. But because I want to make a bead drop, I place a head pin through the bead. Next, I get my small floral mold. This is actually a manicure nail art silicone mold, which is why it's so tiny. I will place a link down below on examples of the silicone mold so that you can look for it on Amazon. Honestly, since I've used the Sutton Slice technique on my molds, I've been able to work with even the tiniest molds. Let me show you how to get a clean flower from the mold. Press the conditioned clay and pack it in. Then, get the short tissue blade and push it across the silicone mold like a Sutton Slice. Because the mold is so tiny, I can actually bend it a bit to release the clay from the mold. Unfortunately, it's a little bit hard to see the process because of its size, and so I will just place a link above to a silicone mold video that I did so that you can see the process better. To save on time, I prepared the different sizes of flowers using my color palette. Use the detail needle to lift each flower. Use the biggest flower to cover the bottom. This will make sure that the head pin will stay in place. I also use my detail needle to add more texture to my flowers. Then, pick up each flower one at a time and place it on the bead. What makes this a little bit more time-consuming is that I really did texture each flower as I placed it on the bead. I continue to do this until all the flowers have been placed and the bead is completely covered. Repeat this process using the other bead. For the next bead, I want to make a teardrop shaped bead. To do this, get a spear shaped bead, then roll out one end on the mat until you get a tapered end. Then get the poking tool or skewer and gently poke from the wider base and roll it through the bead until the sharp part pokes through the other end. Just make sure that you do this very carefully so that you don't ruin the teardrop shape. Then, push the head pin through the hole. Repeat the same steps on the other bead. Next, get the mold of the daisy and use the satin slice to get a clean cut of the mold. Put this at the bottom of the bead to hold the head pin and to cover the hole as well. Make a smaller flower that will go on the top tapered end of the bead. This makes sure that the holes on the beads are neatly covered. And then just follow the same steps in the spherical bead and cover the entire teardrop with flowers. Now that these have been fully baked, it's time to make them into earrings. First, cut off the excess pin. Then, get the round nose pliers and round the ends of the pin. Attach the jump rings. I normally open my jump rings by bending it sideways so as not to deform the circle. Finally, attach these to the earring findings. And there you have it, my polymer clay bead drop earrings. Again, a big thank you to those of you who have taken the time to watch my videos, press the like button, or leave a comment. It's given me a reason to continue sharing what I know about polymer clay and also to continue learning. I truly appreciate each and every one of you. Here's to more crafts in 2022. Have a crafty weekend. Bye!
What?